topic is steering SMEs to the global level. Mr. Galathi perhaps lately prepared by saying this SME definition varies from country to country and region to region. Of course, India defines an SME based on the investment, money invested into plant and machinery. Australia defines it based on the number of people employed, so do many other countries. So the definition of an SME could vary from region to region, but the fact remains, we all know SME means a small company, and we also know in today's world, globalization is not an option. I think it's a way of life. We have to integrate into this fast shrinking global village. I would like to share with you a study that let me just introduce briefly myself. I have been advising the Australian government and businesses for over 15 years on India. I used to work for Australian Government Export Promotion Agency, Australia, before I took on this role as a Senior Trade Commissioner for South Australia, which is a very important state within Australia. With this experience, I would like to share with you a study that Australia conducted in 2001. We went out to all the SMEs. When I say SMEs, people who are not necessarily exporting, to find out what were they losing out on. We did a comparison of the benefits of those companies which were exporting versus those which were not. And it was a project called Knowing and Growing. And some of the outcomes of this study would not be very surprising today, but they were 10 years ago. We found that the companies that were exporting consistently were performing better than those who were not exporting. When I say not exporting, were the ones who were just focusing on the domestic market on a whole range of indicators. We found that these companies who were exporting formed a bridge to other countries, technology and international know-how. They could absorb the technologies and know-hows much faster than those who were not exporting because they had a bridge with overseas companies. They seem to provide higher quality jobs and better working conditions to the employees than those who were not exporting. In fact, we also found that the companies that were exporting were paying better salaries than those who were not. In other words, perhaps they were more profitable than those who were not exporting. And very importantly, the companies who were exporting were able to withstand local recessions much better because they didn't have all the eggs in the same baskets. They had spread the risks across a number of countries. And we've also found exporting gives businesses the opportunity to grow their markets and increase efficiency gains through knowledge transfers, which I think in today's knowledge economy is extremely important. And of course, social benefits by improving labor market outcomes for firms and for workers. So I just thought I'll share with you some of the findings that we had identified as early as 2001. And in today's, economy, I think we've crossed well beyond all that.